and it's called Special Principles of Miracle Workers. You might remember that there were those 50 principles at the beginning, and then these are a set of apparently additional principles here. And I find that many people read them and have no idea what they mean and then move on. And thus, the insights that are available from this material are not understood, and yet it proves to be very helpful to understand these insights. And so we'll take it a little slow. It's not a lot of reading today, so we'll take our time and try and strive for maximum understanding. And that often we get there by your asking questions and saying, I don't understand. Can you explain something? And we'll go into it more detail when that happens. Okay. So welcome to Miracles on High Plains. My name is Jonica, and our reader today is Atisha B. We're going to do a review first.
Review. Corrective learning always begins with the awakening of spirit and the turning away from the belief in physical sight. This often entails fear because you are afraid of what your spiritual sight will show you. I said before that the Holy Spirit cannot see error and is capable only of looking beyond it to the defense of atonement. There is no doubt that this may produce discomfort. Yet the discomfort is not the final outcome of the perception. When the Holy Spirit is permitted to look upon the defilement of the altar, he also looks immediately toward the atonement. Nothing he perceives can induce fear. Everything that results from spiritual awareness is merely channelized toward correction. Discomfort is aroused only to bring the need for correction into awareness.
Mm-hmm. So the awakening to spirit can be viewed as a journey of learning to correct the errors. And so the whole Course in Miracles, it's a course, it's a curriculum of corrective learning, identifying the problem, the error in our mind regarding reality, regarding God, regarding ourselves, regarding the meaning of love, whatever confusions we might have in our mind about those topics, and then being willing to offer them over to the Holy Spirit and let the Holy Spirit correct our minds. And that brings clarity and ultimately spiritual insight, which is what the whole goal here is, to bring clarity and spiritual insight. So we're talking about not only waking up to spirit ourselves, but also, particularly in this section we're about to read, to be of help to others who desire to wake up. What role can you play in God's plan for salvation to help others who wish to wake up to their true self? So with that, we'll go into, there's 8 principles we'll cover here.
1. The miracle abolishes the need for lower order concerns. Since it is an out-of-pattern time interval, the ordinary considerations of time and space do not apply. When you perform a miracle, I will arrange both time and space to adjust to it.
That's pretty profound. I don't know that I've ever read anything equivalent to what was just read here before. So a miracle is not from this world. A miracle is from heaven. It is a gift to this world to be of help. And it does that by quickening or accelerating the time that it would normally take for us to overcome our illusions, our fears, our doubts. It by accelerating that and moving us forward in our learning and saving time, it helps bring us closer to complete forgiveness, total forgiveness. And so the miracle, in order to do that, it's necessary. We covered in the previous session what it means to be right minded, to be oriented towards those things which concern your soul and the soul of others, is to be right minded. And to be wrong minded is to be overly preoccupied with the lower order realities of the physical world, to be so focused on just the physical level that we neglect the soul level, the higher level. And so the miracle abolishes the need for those lower order concerns. It is said to be manipulate time. It's an out of pattern interval. What is an interval? An interval is measured in minutes or seconds, time interval, where in that interval, ordinary considerations of time and space, lower order concerns, do not are unimportant. What is important is how do we bring the soul closer to the realization of our true self. And so Christ says, when you're in that state, helping to others to realize their own true nature, Christ will arrange both time and space to adjust to that moment so that you need not be distracted by the ordinary lower order concerns. And so that's a lot to take in. Suffice it to say, it gives you, I'm hesitant to use this term, but you'll know what I mean. It gives you a little space bubble to work within, where in that brief moment, the issues of the day, lower order concerns of the physical world, need not be attended to, and you can be fully alert and awake to the presence of spirit moving in that moment. And so Christ will arrange both the time and the space to be able to adjust to the need for a miracle. Trust that this is the way it works doesn't mean you need to understand all the details of those mechanisms, but you're not alone in those experiences. The Holy Spirit and Christ both are standing on both your sides in order to contribute their part to the healing of others. Noel?
So the lower order concerns are the usual physical remedies, could we say, that one might apply to whatever the disturbances? Is that correct?
I think it's more general than just that, Noel. I think lower order concerns are I'm late to an appointment. How do I get there faster? I've got to eat, sleep, shower, change my clothes. You know, all the most of the activities of daily life are just moving about from point A to point B and seeing to it that you're on time and coordinating with your family members and other things. All those concerns, am I going to be late? Where are the kids? And we're not saying that we're indicating this is while you're performing the miracle, which is usually something of fairly short duration, think in terms of minutes. So it's no concern for those lower order concerns during that period of time. That would be the way I would interpret it. A lot of what is involved in miracles, Noel, is exactly what you and I were doing here, is seeking to interpret what the meaning is for lower order concerns. And it helps to have been through miracles twice or maybe even three times because you kind of get the bigger picture of what it said and each of throughout the course. That's really helped me a lot to understand the context of these statements. Yeah. Okay, so time and space will be rearranged during the miracle so that you need not be distracted by it. I can think of some examples here. But I don't want to narrow it just to the example. But many times when people are at their most vulnerable moment and they're really open to receiving help, their soul is ready to heal. Many times those things occur during a critical or crisis period where there's all kinds of concerns about how we're going to get through this situation. And what Christ is saying is you won't need during that period to be distracted by all the other things that are going around. Doesn't mean forever you won't need to attend to those things, but it does mean during this interval of time, this time interval, when you perform a miracle, that Christ has got your back. That was the language I'm looking for. Christ has your back during that time. Okay, we'll go on.
2, a clear distinction between what is created and what is made is essential. All forms of correction or healing rest on this fundamental correction in level perception. Another way of stating the second principle is this. 3, never confuse right and wrong-mindedness. Responding to any form of error with anything except a desire to heal is an expression of this confusion.
So a lot of things seem very simple once you've gone through the learning journey. But when you're in the earlier stages of it, it doesn't seem so simple. But it really is. In fact, there is a level at which it's very simple. So we're referring here to the fundamental correction in level perception, which requires a clear distinction between what is created and what is made. It says that distinction is essential. So let's go over what those levels are. And I've chosen to group them in 3 different categories because I think it's convenient for teaching purposes. First level is what is created by God. And by that, we mean all the spirit beings of all creation, God's creation that is created. There's another aspect of creation, which is a category of what is created by God, and that's what is co-created by man and God. That's where you and I contribute. That's our when we are invited to participate in God's creation. Let us make man in our image. Let's do it together. Um, and the Course of Miracles refers to this as your creations. These would certainly be the experiences of your soul. And these things occur even here on earth now, your creations. The third category that needs to be distinguished is from what is made. And made is a term used in the Course to refer to a miscreation where we attempt to make our illusions seem real, or where we make an idol into our God. And so what is made by a separated mindset. It's made by a mind that incorrectly, mistakenly believes that the power that it has can be used independent of the creator. And this is what makes one, leads one, your fears, your judgments of yourself, the world, and of others, your guilt, all that is made by a mind that is separate from its awareness of creation. And so go back to the main, now that we've identified those two or three categories, because God's involved in the first two, go back to what it says. It is essential to make a clear distinction between what is created and what is made. Let this is the way in which we correct our level confusion. Which is to say, we stop using our faith and our mind to believe in illusions, and instead recognize illusions are not the truth. Another way, this can be stated with many different words, but another approach to it is to use the distinction between right and wrong mindedness. The previous session focused quite a bit on right mindedness, to be able to distinguish when your mind is aware of your plan in your part in God's plan for salvation. When your mind is oriented to allowing the Holy Spirit to guide you, you're in your right mind. And when you've forgotten all of that and are completely unconscious of your soul and other person's soul, you're in your wrong mind or your separated mind. And the miscreation is responding to situations in your wrong mind, believing that they are what matters most. And the correction to that is to respond to things only with a desire to heal. Okay, so this is fundamental, essential, and right now, let's say there's two parts to learning this. There's the theory, which we've just covered. We can say it again in other ways, but that's the theory. And then there's the application. That's where you're going to learn. You're going to learn by, as you go about life and a situation arises and there's a temptation for you to respond to it with doubt, fear, judgment, or guilt that may occur to you. And in that moment, you realize, wait a minute, this feels like temptation of the ego. This feels like wrong-mindedness. You're recognizing the problem. and that making a distinction between those ordinary events that might cause us to be afraid and what is created, what the things that stem from love. Before we go on, if there's any comments, please feel free to raise your hand. If not, we'll go to number 4.
Never confuse right and wrong-mindedness. 4. The miracle is always a denial of this error and an affirmation of the truth. Only right-mindedness can correct in a way that has any real effect. Pragmatically, what has no real effect has no existence. Its effect then is emptiness. Being without substantial content, it lends itself to projection.
So we're still working with this fundamental principle that it's essential to learn to distinguish what is real in God's creation from the illusions that we make. In fact, the entire Course of Miracles, that thread runs from the beginning and to the end. It's essential to learn to distinguish what love has made from what fear has made. So a miracle always, it does two things. It denies the error that fear has made. It recognizes this is essential. This is where we begin the healing journey. It's not enough to just stay at the beginning, but it always begins at the recognition of the error, of the illusion, of the fear, of the judgment, of the guilt. It always begins by recognizing that. Otherwise, the prompt will enter into your awareness and you'll get hooked. You'll get triggered by it. You'll consume it, believing it to be true, and act as if that were real. That's the separated state. So the miracle is always the denial of the error. And in order to heal, we must then affirm the truth. So in practice, I think I spent a few years in my miracles journey becoming very adept at labeling illusions as illusions. And that's all I did. I just denied the error. Oh, that's an illusion. That's an illusion. And you know what? Truthfully, it's not hard to do in this world because illusions are everywhere. We're having them all day long. So there's no real great insight in that. But I stopped short of then the part that heals, which is to affirm that only the truth is true, to affirm that the Holy Spirit is our source, our guide, that God's plan for creation prevails and that we have a part in it. So which is right-mindedness, only right-mindedness can correct in a way that has any effect, that has any meaning at all. Said another way, you can't correct an error from a terribly confused, mistaken frame of mind. And at least you think that sounds unusual. Anytime you're in a panic, when you're overwhelmed by doubts and fears and confusion, the type of planning or problem solving that goes on in that state of mind is a wrong-minded problem solving, and only right-mindedness can correct in any way that has any real effect. This is why it's necessary to do a timeout, a divine pause, and go pray, go sit down, go ask spirit to help you rebalance so that you can re-enter into your correct mind, your right mind, and correct there. Noel?
To address the denial part, it occurs to me a variation of a sentence that a lot of us know. Let me recognize that what I think I did to myself has not occurred.
Yeah, I find that is definitely a form of it. It's to deny that the illusion has power over me. In fact, all feelings of guilt from the past are affirmations that the illusions of the past still have power over me. Because if we were free of the guilt of the past, then we wouldn't feel guilty. We would feel free. But guilt binds us to our regrets from the past, or our judgments from the past, and assumes that it does have power. And so this ability to use denial is essential, that you learn to deny the false, learn to deny illusions, learn to deny fear. Without that, it's like trying to row your boat with a hole in it. You're just going to take on water and you're not going to get very far. And I'm sure they don't come to mind right now, but I'm sure in the first 30 workbook lessons that there's plenty of practice in using denial of the errors. This table does not mean anything to my soul, for example.
Five, the level adjustment power of the miracle induces the right perception for healing. Until this has occurred, healing cannot be understood. Forgiveness is an empty gesture unless it entails correction. Without this, it is essentially judgmental rather than healing.
And Atisha, can you read the footnotes as well on this in this instance?
Sure. By denying your mind any destructive potential and reinstating its purely constructive powers, you place yourself in a position to undo the level confusion of others. The miscreations of the mind do not really exist. This recognition is a far better protective device than any form of level confusion, because it introduces correction at the level of the error. It is essential to remember that only the mind can create, and that correction belongs at the thought level.
Mm-hmm. So this principle, a few years ago, really shook my view of forgiveness for the good, but I had missed it before. So I really want to emphasize this. So let's take it from the top. The miracle helps to correct level confusion they refer to it as the level adjustment power of the miracle. How? Because a miracle requires that you be right-minded, that you be aware that you have a part to play in God's creation, and that you're being called in the moment of a miracle, you're being called to extend a hand to someone else that may not understand that truth. So a miracle helps clarify these. What matters most is the soul of the individual, realizing that they are a soul within God's creation and they're not just an ego or a body. And until that adjustment, that orientation towards the soul occurs, healing cannot be understood. Otherwise, healing will mean seen to be interpreted as something to do with the body, which would be the medical way of approaching. Healing will always be understood as how does the body heal? And again, it takes us into physical lower order reality awareness away from the more fundamental need, which is to heal the mind. As we said in previous sessions, when the mind is healed, when you know what your purpose is, what you're here for, that you're working in partnership with the Holy Spirit, then the body will be adequate to perform miracles. The second part of this is where I had my aha experience. And look at the words. Forgiveness by itself is an empty gesture until and unless it entails correction. Said another way, forgiveness and correction must go hand in hand, or else it's empty gesture. So this should clue you in on the importance of correction. Without correction, forgiveness is essentially judgmental rather than healing. And that's what shattered my understanding of forgiveness. That sentence, without correction, forgiveness is essentially judgmental. So let me break that down a little bit. We only forgive what we thought needed to be forgiven. You forgive a judgment about something or someone or yourself. You have a belief that that's wrong or bad, and then we realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm in a judgmental state of mind. That can't be what I'm here for. Let me let that go. And so forgiveness is just the decision to no longer hang on to a judgment, to let it go. But that part in and of itself does not heal. It's essentially just making a reverse judgment against the judgment you originally made, that that thing is unworthy, or that person is guilty, or I'm guilty. Forgiveness is taking that back. The second part is that it only heals if it entails correction. And correction, the Course is very clear. Correction comes from only one source, and that's the Holy Source. of all healing. That's the Holy Spirit. You cannot correct your perception by yourself. If you don't understand, you can't correct your misunderstanding by yourself. You need to join with the source of understanding in order to be corrected. And so, with this insight, we could go back. We're not going to spend time on doing this, but we could go back to all the other statements that were made earlier about correction. Let me see if I can find them here. Sorry for flipping through so many screens here. This all forms of correction or healing rest on this fundamental correction in level perception. So, said another way, you cannot correct your own level confusion. By definition, if you're confused about the levels, you're confused. But the Holy Spirit is not confused. So we join with the Holy Spirit in a state of right-mindedness to correct our confusion in level perception. And this is what brings about healing. And I thought it with the term correction was mentioned other places, but healing. So the simple equation is forgiveness plus correction equals healing. I should have said that from the beginning. I should have put that in notes. Forgiveness plus correction equals healing. Forgiveness alone is essentially just an undoing of a judgment. It's a counter judgment to the original judgment. It's a step in the right direction, but it must be accompanied by joining with the mind of the Holy Spirit to perceive correctly. I feel so strong about this that for several years, I didn't want to go any further with miracle students until they fully grasp this point. Because otherwise, forgiveness is just alone is a practice in judgment. And we know that that is not the Holy Spirit's plan. Atisha?
Is the correction that is being spoken of here, is that there was never anything to forgive? Or does the correction take different forms?
Yes, it takes different forms. The principle that you stated, there was never anything to forgive, is the broad abstract truth that kind of covers all instances, but the form of the correction varies. But the source of the correction does not vary. Let's look at what remains the same and what differs. The source of the correction is always the Holy Spirit. She is never concerned with the error. This is to your point. It's a nothing. The error is a nothingness. So she is not occupied with further elaborations on the nature of the error, which is kind of like psychoanalysis. Let's elaborate on the error extensively. She dismisses that with one fell swoop and immediately moves towards bringing the mind up to its right-minded state. And so I want to correct something I just said. The correction is always in the form of returning our mind to a state of perception wherein we recognize Holy Spirit, that we are a part of that plan, and the person that we are encountering is also a vital member of that plan. So, in that sense, the corrections are always the same. It's only the illusions that seem to differ, Atisha. So, for instance, if I have the illusion I'm about to go bankrupt and lose everything, obviously that's very troubling. That's very different than if my family member's in a car accident. But those panics, as different as they seem to be, always have the same form of correction, is to recognize that we are part of the creation, that we are actually, our spirit is invulnerable to the ups and downs of time and space. Uh, and it puts us in a frame of mind where we can both heal ourselves and be of help in healing others. All right, let's go on.
6. Miracle-minded forgiveness is only correction. It has no element of judgment at all. The statement, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," in no way evaluates what they do. It is an appeal to God to heal their minds. There is no reference to the outcome of the error. That does not matter.
So this obviously builds directly on what we just said about the essential role of correction. Miracle-minded forgiveness, forgiveness as it's taught in the Course, miracle-minded forgiveness is only intended for the correction. It does not accentuate the error or evaluate it or tell more stories about it or seek to explore the many possible causes. Like in family systems, we can chase things all the way back to our grandparents and before and our culture and see how these family conditions were passed down generation after generation. All that, which is fascinating. Miracle-minded forgiveness is not concerned with any of that. It's concerned only with the restoration of our relationship with Creator. It has no elements of judgment or analysis or guilt whatsoever. It in no way evaluates what they do. And it just occurred to me just now, so I'm going to share it. There was this story in the New Testament where they caught a woman in adultery, and it was a very strict culture, and so the publicans, no, the Pharisees, who were the law holders there, very strict, they dragged the woman out to Jesus and sought to entrap him in a double bind, because they said that our law dictates that when caught in adultery, she should be stoned to death. And so they wanted to trap Jesus by saying, should we stone her to death as the law says? So that if he said, obviously, no matter what answer he gave, no, don't follow the law, then they would accuse him of being a lawbreaker. And if he said, yes, stone her to death, well, then that would be a violation of his own teachings about forgiveness and love. So, Jesus, just to shorten the story, he wrote something in the sand which had every man there walk away in embarrassment. And when at the end, the only two people remaining were Jesus and the woman who was accused. And in no way did he evaluate what she did. And instead, he invited her to enter into the kingdom. It was not about the story of her past. It's about the present moment. This day, you can enter into the kingdom. It's an appeal to God to heal their minds, with no reference to the error that had been made. That does not matter. This is essential principle within the course, that regarding a long history of the past, surely some very cruel and immoral, indecent things have occurred in the long history of humanity. Just in the 20th century alone, there's a long, long list. And the course would have us move forward rather than remain fixed, staring in the past, reevaluating it, and stirring that pot once again. Miracle-minded forgiveness is only oriented towards correcting the mind in the present moment. And so this is not to say other people will not try using other methods, but what we're teaching here is what the Holy Spirit offers as the means to heal the separation between people. Number 7.
The injunction, be of one mind, is the statement for revelation readiness. My request, do this in remembrance of me, is the appeal for cooperation from miracle workers. The two statements are not in the same order of reality. Only the latter involves an awareness of time, since to remember is to recall the past in the present. Time is under my direction, but timelessness belongs to God. In time, we exist for and with each other. In timelessness, we coexist with God.
Well, so this goes a little further out there on the spectrum of ideas which you can apply your faith to. We are talking about different orders of reality, statements that cover different orders of reality. And we talked about that earlier in distinguishing between what is created and what is made. Different orders of reality. They are not the same. In this instance, the distinction is made between time and timelessness. And so it is a principle, and this is not essential to fully grasp to be able to work with miracles. But time is under the direction of Christ. He just said in an earlier principle that I will arrange time and space to adjust time and space while you're performing a miracle, so that you do not need to be concerned with the lower order reality. I'll take care of those factors. So time is under Christ's direction. My here refers to the author of the book, which is Christ. But timelessness belongs to God. God does not live in time, does not manage time, is not limited or any way constrained by time. He functions in a transcendent all time mode. And so I just love this statement here. In time, because you might ask, well, what's the difference then? In time, we exist for and with each other. In timelessness, we coexist with God. I just find that so poetic. And so, if statements like this perhaps cause you to lose your balance and look at it with confusion, I would suggest meditating on this merely by having on your own, when quiet time, just like you would a workbook lesson, you know how to do that. Just have it in front of you. Read the statement a few times. Close your eyes and ask to understand, what does this mean? You might have to open your eyes and read it again. Close your eyes. Very similar to the way you would do a workbook lesson. And ask to understand. There's a good beginning. Let's ask Spirit to give us clarity and understanding. Okay. We're going to get ready and wrap.
Number 8. You can do much on behalf of your own healing and that of others if, in a situation calling for help, you think of it this way: I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal.
So again, a miracle involves you and another. And so it helps to heal you and that of others. So in a situation, this is a key, a situation calling for help. So let's pause on that idea. People call for help in many forms. My experience is rarely do they say, I need your help. But they signal that they are in need of help in many different nonverbal and verbal ways. A person that's sitting on a bench crying is not necessarily asking you for help, but in some ways is signaling that they are in a state where they need help. And in that moment, our role is to be willing to remember. Not that we're being called, does not mean every time we see somebody cry, we're to step forward, but it does mean to affirm your part in God's plan for creation, that I am here only to be helpful. And he who sent me will direct me as to whether or not I should sit down and talk to this person. That would be a Christ-directed miracle that you feel called from deep within to help in that moment. It's very time-centered. These windows open up. As we said before, Christ will arrange time and space so that whatever appointments you had that you were in a rush for, rather than being preoccupied with leaving because you don't have time for this person, Christ will arrange time and space. The other matters will be taken care of if you are being directed to help in that moment. And so this is said in a lot of different ways, but I would encourage you to use this first line. Why am I here? And when we say here, that can mean here in a specific place in a specific moment, or it can be also interpreted more abstractly, like, why am I here on earth? I'm here only to be truly helpful. This is the attitude of being ready for a miracle, of being right-minded, of being miracle-minded. I'm willing to contribute my voice, my ears and eyes to God's plan to bring healing to others. And I don't have to worry about what to say or to do. It's not your plan, it's God's plan. He'll be the one that will direct you. Oh, is that it? Yeah, I guess that is. Okay, so that's as far as we're going to read for today. That is pretty intense, though. I find those principles to be very unvarnished truth. It's going right for the vital, essential, fundamental attributes that we need to pay attention to in order to heal ourselves and be of help to healing others. So let me invite you to our next session, which will come up tomorrow, which chapter 2 I've often called the fear chapter because it has a number of things it says about your own self-generated fears and how to become free from them. We'll cover that in tomorrow's session. So comments or questions before we go? That was a shorter one. Atisha, thank you for your faithful reading here. Thank you all for your attention, and we'll look forward to connecting again real soon. Namaste.
Tisha, thank you.
Stay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye everyone. Thanks, Jonica.
Peace
Stay
and love.
warm.
Thanks, Shanika. Thank you, guys. See you all tomorrow.
Good night, all.
Good night.